If you haven't caught me saying it on the channel before, the absolute favorite G1 combiner set for me are the Technobots. I love the matching colors, I love the unique vehicles, I love the space age designs. It really, really sinks in with me. I also had 3 members as a kid, which was the most I ever got of any one combiner team, at least until adulthood when I completed it. But that does mean when they announced Scattershot for Combiner Wars, I got super, super excited. And then this came out, which dashed a lot of hopes for a lot of people. Now, yes, there is a box set coming out, supposedly. Still just rumor as of this video. But for now, I felt it my duty as a Technobot connoisseur to actually do a review of the new Scattershot. And I was going to put this thing on eBay and wait for the box set, but hey, why not? You know, I will spend my dollar so you don't have to. As we can see, it's not a vehicle mode that any Scattershot's been in before, and it's a Silverbolt remold, so a lot of that Concorde jet is still in that body shape. Real long front end, big boxy rear end with a lot of folded up robot underneath the wings. Now, I will admit, G1 Scattershot is a fairly boxy figure himself, but he's boxy in multiple directions, and he actually has a look to him. It's more of a space shuttle than any kind of jet. So this just does not suit him. This is not the Scattershot I grew up with. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be, but man. And there are other letdowns to it. We'll start from the front, where the front section is molded in an off-white color, and you can see there is some paint detailing to it, a little bit of red, a little bit of black for the windows, and then, yes, there is a massive gun sticking out the front, because that was G1's Scattershot's gimmick. The front end split open, there's a massive silver gun in front. They kind of split the difference here and did away with the spring-loaded gimmick, not surprising, but it does look a little bit strange. I kind of appreciate that, but at the same time, maybe a little bit awkward flying around with a giant cannon in front. You'd think it'd get clogged up by a bird or something. And then we look to the rear section, where there are Technobot elements. We do have a little bit of a tail fin that's meant to match the wings, since, I don't know, it's kind of matching in with the aesthetic there. I'm trying to remember, I don't even think they had tail fins on the G1 Scattershot. Not to my knowledge, anyway. But of course, the major remolding here, aside from the front end, are the wings, which you can see they do have the Technobot shape, though there is this enormous gap in it for some reason. I presume just to save on plastic, which you'd think they wouldn't have a problem with being the third use of this mold, but it does make the wings pretty flimsy, and they're already soft plastic to keep these pieces from breaking off. It's a bit of a disappointment. Like, they're just not as sturdy or solid as I would like, and it means the shaping is a little bit off. Speaking of off, color, man. Okay, now I know the lights are a little bit bright. I've tried to adjust it a little bit so you can see this a little bit better. Now through the center here, and it goes to the tail fins in the back, you can actually see a bit of a metallic red, just a little bit of metallic sheen to it. Not much, but it's a pretty bright shade. And then you have the Technobot red, which is supposed to be closer to a brown. Here it's not too far off. I mean, as my lights kind of bleed the colors together a little bit, you know, the colors are pretty similar. Like, on the G1 Scattershot, it's very definitive, red and brown. Like, they are 2 colors. Here, it's just 2 shades of red. And then you notice these wings are a 3rd shade of red, somewhere in between, and they are dull, no metallic to them at all. Which means we got 3 shades of red going on here in the vehicle mode. And this is kind of unfortunate because everything is too off in color to properly blend, and everything is too off in color to properly separate too. So instead of getting Technobot brown and red, or instead of getting a solid red vehicle, it falls somewhere in the middle and looks kind of disjointed and messy, which is really unfortunate. Speaking of messy, there is some interesting changes to the mold that make this a little bit funny to me. So you see on the side here, all the windows from the Concorde jet are still there because the centerpiece is the exact same part that was on Silverbolt. But then we moved to the front, and they had to actually mold an actual door and some extra windows on there just to make sure the pieces looked like they went together. No paint to help that, but hey, whatever. And then we get to the massive cockpit and the massive gun. This is clearly not something that was meant to carry multiple people. You know, no more than a pilot in a cockpit, or a pilot and a co-pilot anyway. Yeah, so all around, it's a bizarre figure, and we haven't even gotten to, like, how much underkibble this thing has. This is no way an aerodynamic jet. Of course, neither was the G1, so we don't begrudge it too much. There is a landing skid underneath, which can fold up, and once it's folded up, you got 2 holes there in the bottom, which can actually plug in his rifle. Now, the 2 holes are kind of redundant. The first hole's plenty enough to hold it in place. You'll also notice a little bit of a landing nub that matches the ones back here. So even with the gun in place, he can stand stable. Now, I don't know if the designers noticed this or not, but he kind of already has a pretty massive cannon sticking out the front, so it's a little bit redundant, and this is kind of why I wish they'd just gone with the folded up gun instead, because, you know, if we wanted a silver gun sticking out the front, we have that. We could have just plugged it on. Anyway, we'll save that for later because there's more to talk about. We'll get to robot mode, which I'm going to start by folding up the wings and pulling the tail fin down. The arms come out. Flip the whole thing over and get the legs rotated around. The pieces fold back. Act like so. Well, actually, I need to fold the feet out first. Someone... Oh, no. Oh, no. Do I have... Okay, yeah. All right. I'm sorry, my fingernails are not quite long enough to have made that reach. But, all right, there we go. Nice and smooth. Right, that all back. He has a very, very simple transformation, isn't he? So, to my knowledge, quite similar to the G1 Silverbolt. Don't know, I've only played with knockoffs, but it's close enough. Fold that down. Now we need to get the whole chest apart so we can actually get to the head. With that closed up is our Combiner War Scattershot in all of his Technobot glory, or what glory there can be had with this figure. And just like the Silverbolt toy, it's nicely proportioned, it's nicely molded, and it's a very boxy figure, so it does carry a lot of that G1 element to it. It's not quite the Technobot I remember, though. So let's get a closer look in, and we'll go to the head, which is both accurate and strange at the same time. So the head mold is completely new, of course it is. What surprises me here is they actually kept the entire face blue, just like the G1 toy. Typically, they would change the color of the visor and make it a little bit different to stand out from the face. Here, all blue, visor and face, just like the original toy. So I will give them credit for making it accurate that way. What I don't get is that extra molding around his face. What is with that? It's like his jowls are sculpted through or something. I'm not entirely sure what they were going for, but it looks really, really odd, and I'm not a fan of that. But hey, at least the head sculpt is pretty well done, and they painted it right, so not all bad. What does kind of get on my nerves is the toy is still very much Silverbolt. You know, there's not a lot of the G1 Scattershot here. The chest shape is wrong. He still has the Silverbolt shoulder wing things. You know, you could have made a passable attempt to get that a little bit more correct, but obviously not a whole lot done here. And in fact, if you take a look at both the artwork that he came with, which I don't have handy, which that would have been good, and if you look at the render that was the promo image for the toy, he actually has very different colors and very different paint patterns, which I assume was meant for the box set, this version separating itself out a little bit. But that also means this one is a passing resemblance to Scattershot at best. He does have a lot of work to do here. I'm bitter. So yeah, he does have sculpting all over. There's little panel lines, and there's little indentations full of mechanical detail, a little bit more toward the belly, grooves down the arms, and yeah, he does have a lot of molding. If you've never seen the Silverbolt toy, it's not too badly sculpted. There is a lot of interesting stuff going on, so I will give it that. It is still just very much Silverbolt. These suspicious orange nipples. A little low for that, but hey. I call it like I see it. And I see nipples. The one thing I do credit is the wings. You know, they're not positioned correctly. This would have been off the side of the leg, but hey, at least they hang down low enough to kind of get the silhouette in there a little bit. Kinda, not really. Again, it's just not supposed. This is not supposed to be Scattershot, man. This is where I get really bitter. Like, why did Skylinks have to get a new toy? Why couldn't it have been Scattershot? We needed a new mold. Oh well. All right, so let's go for articulation then. If I can't be impressed by his Silverbolty Technobot look. Head is ball jointed, so you get range of motion. It does get hindered because it's a big blocky helmet, but not terrible. Proper ratchets all over, because that has to be a combiner hip soon. Bicep rotation, very stiff elbows. That's good. No wrist rotation, no waist. Again, detents and ratchets, making the hips plenty sturdy. That's the one thing I will give Combiner Wars a lot of credit for. We went a long time without hearing these ratcheted hips and things that just make the toy feel so much more secure. They all came back. Thank you. So, thighs do rotate. Once they do, you do have a super good knee bend. Really good. So, that I give credit for. And a little bit of rock to the ankle backwards, but no tilt. They come a little bit pre-tilted in the sculpt, and that's about it. So, good level of articulation. You know, Silverbolt and Cyclonus all share the same, so no surprise there. For accessory on his own, we do have the rifle, which never got remolded, and this is where they desperately needed to do some remolding because Cyclonus didn't look good with this, and I'll tell you what, Scattershot does not either. So I'm going to mount it on the lower peg just so it doesn't look super silly. But yeah, his rifle was not originally silver, it was originally brown, so yeah, this doesn't work either. And yeah, Silverbolt's weapon is just such a distinct shape. Like, there's really not a whole lot you can do to disguise that. It does separate, and they generally show him with both weapons out, so you do have a long rifle as well as an arm shield. It's not bad. It's still doesn't look quite right, but hey, at least it's variety in how the toy gets used, so I will give it credit with that, and we will leave it. And then, of course, yes, there is one more mode that we do have to cover. So, let's hurry up and get to it. And we'll start by getting that head back to where it belongs. We'll flip the whole toy over, like so. Flipping the hands back reveals the combiner ports. And now here we go. All of this has to rotate down. Feet. We get those back out. Feet go back down. Back in the leg. Back in the leg you go. This will all fold back up again, just like it was in vehicle mode. Make sure I get the connection points in. Yep, we're good. Now, grab onto that little horn, which makes it a little bit easier to pull the combiner mode head out. Flip the horns up. Connect on, and then fold these pieces out. They're on a double hinge, so they extend, cover all of that. Whoop, a little out of order. Always forget that little panel. But there we go. With that done, we can fold those down to expose the last of the combiner ports. And that is the torso of not Computron, Betatron. Because according to Hasbro, he's in beta, and he's not quite a Computron yet. And I've never agreed with Hasbro so much. Okay, so yes, it is obviously Silverbolt in his Superion mode, right down to the head looking exactly like Superion. And we're going to get to the weird part of that in a minute. But this is where all those very similar shades of red just come and crash hard because he is nothing but solid red. Now, in the storyline, this is because, well, he's meant to replace any of the combiner torsos, as when they need a quick change up of combinations or when someone gets damaged or something. So they kind of storyline an excuse for it, but it's just an excuse. This just does not look good. There's no paint whatsoever making this work. There's just red. It is just red all over, and it really kills a lot of this toy. Like, there's good molding in here. The torso looks good, but it's still very much Superion. There's no getting around it. And yes, that does include the head. The head, strangely enough, has one thing going for it. The horns are actually molded in yellow rather than being painted like the original release. This means they actually fold up correctly and they don't have a spongy feeling when you're trying to fold them into position. So they actually stand straight up on his head. That's good. You know the strange thing about this? Someone found out that combiner mode head is entirely molded in white plastic. Yeah, that's all paint, apparently. Strange, I know. So it was completely by intention that he looks spot on to Superion. Which, again, I did surmise, and correctly, by the way, over on an episode of the WTF at TFW podcast before the box set started leaking, that it was intentional so that the box set version could be more accurate, look much more like Computron. Same combiner mode head, but at least the colors should be right. And that way, people like me who really, really want a new set of Technobots can actually be happy and have a full set. So, at the very least, this is a sin they knew they were committing, and they decided to, it's completely intentional. Silverbolt, it's so much like Silverbolt, like I'm going to keep getting it confused. Yeah, Scattershot feels exactly like what he is. He's a wave filler. Onslaught was coming out, Skylynx wasn't ready, so hey, we have this remold in mind. We don't know if we're going to get to the box set for the Technobots or not. So let's go ahead and at least release Scattershot just for the people who want another combiner character from G1. And then, at least they can have that while they wait. And then you get another combiner character without having to pay $100. But whatever. This is not a Scattershot. It looks like a Scattershot, but it doesn't play like one. And it's still way too much like Silverbolt. And admittedly, it's a decent toy. This mold was never bad, but there are shortcomings here. There's remolding and there's work that could have been done to make him look better and more accurate. And more importantly, the combiner mode, the torso mode, looks boring as sin. All red and a head that didn't have to be black. So, I don't know. This, as a standalone figure, it's okay. Vehicle mode doesn't quite work, but hey, it's what it is. I'm just a bitter Technobot fan over this one. I want the real thing. I want the better paint job, and I want the better paint job, and I want the other Technobots, and I want them right now. But if you're looking at this as a standalone Silverbolt, I keep saying it because it's so Silverbolt, and it's not supposed to be. I think that's the biggest thing here. It just still feels too much like Silverbolt. So, if you got one version of this mold already, I don't think you're missing out on anything. And if you really want a Scattershot, wait to see if the box set rumor comes true. And even if it doesn't, I'm sure Takara's going to pick it up at some point.